What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take a look at how you can start sampling way better in 2021. It's time to step up the game. So let's get right into this. Alright guys, I'll give you a little sample of what's to come. We're not going to make this exact same sampling process here, but this is something that you can expect from the process I'm about to be showing you guys. So yes, that is sampled. That's not just a melody I pulled out of a pack. Well, it is, but then I went ahead and I chopped it up, sampled it, added some effects, and made it sound really good. So let's get you to that same exact page. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the 808s, and I'm also going to turn off the melodies here so that we can build a new melody on top of these drums right away. So what you want to do is you can either make a melody by hand and then go ahead and freeze and flatten it and turn it into a sample so that we can then go ahead and start chopping it up, or you can use one from a pack that you have. Maybe someone has some samples that you made that you already like that you want to use, and that's what we're going to be doing today just for time's sake. So we're going to go into a pack and find something that sounds good, and then we're going to start chopping it up, and I'm going to show you the process behind making it sound like an actual sampled amazing beat. I think this one sounds perfect right here. Okay, so we're going to use that sample right there. And what I'm doing is I'm just making a MIDI track, right? And I have the MIDI track selected right here. And all I'm going to do is drag this down onto the MIDI track. And it's going to load it into a simpler for us automatically. Okay, I'm going to turn the snap off right there just in case it snaps it. We don't want it snapping around. And I'm going to put it into the slice mode right here. I'm probably going to turn the transient or the sensitivity on the transient down somewhere like 50, maybe a little bit lower. That seems to look pretty good though. And now what I'm going to start doing is playing it on my piano, on my keyboard, and making sure that all the transients are hitting in the right spots. So let's do that really quick. Okay, so what I want to do is chop this up a little bit more, because listen to this first note. There's two different things going on. I want it to split down the middle right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually just going to mess with these markers. So this sample repeats over and over again, so we're fine to do this. Otherwise, you might need to turn the sensitivity back up a little bit more so that some of these green markers start to show up again. So basically we want our marker to go where this one should have been right here. So I'm going to take this green one right here and pull it over. And then I'm going to keep pulling it back. Now everything's going to be going back to the previous step before it. And if you see these gray ones, it actually won't let you move the marker past the gray ones. So what you can do is you can just like move the gray ones all the way over like this. It'll make it a little bit easier for you. And then I'm just going to keep going through here. And I'm going to nail all these different transients really quick. Alright, so now that we have them in some good spots right here, this is what it sounds like when I play it on my keyboard. And once you're happy with that, then you can go ahead and start playing something out on your keyboard. So what I'm going to do is play the drums that I have going right now and try to find something on the keyboard that I like. Otherwise, you could just turn on the metronome and then do it by itself, however works for you. Once you start to hear something that you picked up that was really good, you can then click on this little button right here. It should be capturing it in the background when you're playing automatically. So I clicked it and this is what popped up. Now I'm just going to make sure everything is on the right track. And then I'm also going to make sure that all of these notes are playing the right notes that I like. What I'm going to do really quick is go ahead and select everything and turn the velocities all the way up and then back them down a little bit so that all the velocities are at the same level. And then I'm going to add some notes if I want to add some notes, maybe change some around if it sounds better to do that, and play around with it a little bit until I get it just right. Alright guys, this is what I ended up coming up with at the very end. Put a little bass note here at the end, making sure to use some of the bass notes. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of dial it in. I'm gonna solo this track a little bit here, and we're gonna get some of the things just a little bit better. We're gonna make sure everything's on track. If anything sounds like it's off a little bit, you can zoom in here. You see this little magnifying glass that pops up when you hover over it. Just click and hold down and you can go in, up and down to zoom in and out. You can make sure that everything is on the right track if anything sounds a little weird. Everything sounds good in our case here. So now what we can do is we can play with these fade ins and fade outs here. This is gonna fade in a little bit right before the note plays and then fade out right before the next note plays, and that's gonna help it transition more smoothly instead of it being such a chop. You can see if we turn it up a lot, it really fades it in way too much, so we just want to put a little bit in there. This is also a good chance for us to also play with the transposition here. It can be really useful to actually turn down the transposition a couple notes because it'll help us in the next step, which is going to be playing with the different octaves and things like that. So it'll also change up the sound of it as well. So if you're using a sample like I used, if you change up the transposition, it'll change up to how it sounds completely. So it can be really cool. So sometimes I like to put this down like -3. So let's see how that sounds. And the next thing I'm going to do is make a duplicate of this. And then with this one that we have right here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And with the one that we just made the duplicate of, we're going to freeze and flatten this now into a sample. Okay, so now we have just a big sample here. And what you can do is you can highlight both of them and press Command J or Control J, and it's going to consolidate them together. So that's just one big sample now. Cool, so now with some basic drums on that, this is what it would sound like. Cool, so that's one part. Now let's talk about how you can change it up and add some variation in it, because obviously you're not going to want that to play the whole time. In some cases it might sound cool to play it the whole time if you're switching up other things a lot or doing things like that, but let's go ahead and duplicate this track again. We're going to work on switching up a little bit more. I'm just going to pull this one outside here, and we're going to work on this one. So the reason that I said it'd be cool to transpose it down a couple is because now we can transpose it up an octave and it'll sound really awesome. So we can go over into our sample here just by double clicking on it. I would make sure that you have it in complex. Complex is the best one in my opinion. And we're going to go ahead and just go up 12 semitones right there. Definitely sounds very sampley and very vibey with that. So let's add a couple effects on it just to give it more of a feel, more of a sample vinyl kind of a feel now. So definitely what you should do is put some reverb on it. A little bit of reverb on it will help a lot, especially with those little gaps that we covered with the fade ins and fade outs. A little bit of reverb will also help or make those sound more cohesive, like as if they don't even exist. So, you know, something like 3.5 or 4 seconds usually sounds good, and you can turn the mix way down. Another thing I'm going to put on here actually right away before that is I'm going to put a little EQ on here just so we can duck those lows that we have, because there's a lot of lows in that melody, so I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of them. And now you could add some kind of vinyl distortion. If you like cassette, you could use a cassette. I use cassette a lot. Otherwise, if you have RC20, RC20 works great as well. Let's use RC20 for this one. And there's some really cool presets. You could go through some of the vinyl presets that they have for you and see which one you like. And what you can do is you can change the color of this now, since it's a different octave and stuff like that. You can make it its own color so you don't get it confused with the one we made above and anything like that. So that's one example of something that you could do. You could also do something similar, right? You could, let's say you wanted to also do this that we just did with this effect, but maybe you want to have another layer with it as well. You could take this and throw it in here as well, and maybe even reverse it or do something like that. So let's see how that would sound. what I would do if I was going to do something like that is I would definitely EQ it. I'd definitely take out those lows again so that's not interacting with our 808 or anything once we add that back in. And I'm also going to take out some of the highs in it as well. And then we'll have it just playing in the background a little bit, so what we can do is turn it way down. It'll just thicken it up a little bit, make it sound a little better. Other things you could do is you could add like an arpeggio on it or something like that. Do something like that. Some other ideas that you could do instead of the arpeggios, you could just put like a halftime on this instead. Let's check that out. That sounds pretty low in the octave, so what you could do is you could even copy this octave that's an octave higher here with the halftime on it, and it'll put it back down to the octave that it was at instead of going one lower, but now it'll have the halftime effect on it as well, which cuts down how many times it's actually playing. So those are a couple ideas of different things that you could do to go ahead and add some variation with the new sample that you made. But honestly, if you do it this way that I showed you the first way, you probably won't need to do any of those other ways unless you want to do something different in the future, or you want to go ahead and switch it up and try out some different things. So let's go ahead and see how this sounds with the drums now that we went ahead and put it up an octave and added a couple effects to it. So that's how you can sample and add variation by just putting some simple effects on it or playing around with the sample in different ways like that. So anyways guys, I hope you like this one. If you guys want to see a new tutorial on how to cook up boom bap beats, something similar to this, let's get this video to 50 likes. If we can get this video to 50 likes, I will go ahead and upload a new boom bap video, and we'll go over some of these new ways that I'm going ahead and making boom bap beats. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you like this one, make sure to smash that like button for me, and let's get it to 50 so we can put that new tutorial out. And subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because we're uploading videos all the freaking time that you're not going to want to miss out on. And besides that, I'll be catching you guys again in the next one. Peace out.